Did Kim Kardashian walk in on Kanye West in the middle of a scandalous hookup? Was Jeffree Star the one holding the smoking gun? After years of whispers, shady lyrics, and suspicious tweets, the truth about Kanye's secret life might finally be blowing wide open. And y'all, it's even messier than we thought. From leaked DMs to explicit tapes, Kim's quiet exit from the marriage suddenly makes a whole lot more sense. But this rabbit hole goes deep. So buckle up, because once we connect the dots, there's no unseeing it. Tonight, we're diving straight into the bombshell that everyone swore was just a messy Twitter rumor until it wasn't. Whispers that Kanye West, yes, that Kanye, might have been living a double life. That maybe, just maybe, his private world looked a whole lot different than the image he sold to the public. And get this, while the internet was still reeling, there were hushed murmurs that Kim Kardashian herself walked in on something she was never supposed to see. Imagine being the queen of reality TV, and suddenly your real life starts looking like the finale of a scandalous soap opera. But if you think this is just tabloid noise, think again, because it wasn't long before Jeffree Star, yes, the Jeffree Star, came out swinging with what he claims are receipts that could blow the lid off this entire story. Screenshots, secret messages, strange coincidences that suddenly don't seem like coincidences at all. And trust me, what we're about to unpack isn't just some wild internet fever dream. This story runs way deeper than a messy headline. There are layers, secrets, and some jaw-dropping connections you were never supposed to find out about. Buckle up. It's about to get messy. Before we even get into the latest bombshells, we have to rewind, because if you know Kanye West's history, you know that nothing happens in a vacuum. For years, Kanye has kept the world guessing with his behavior. Wild outbursts, bizarre interviews, cryptic social media rants that sometimes felt like cries for help, and sometimes like warnings we didn't know how to interpret. And if you listen closely to his music, the hints have always been there. Take his 2018 track, Real Friends, where Kanye casually drops a line about a cousin blackmailing him over a stolen laptop full of sensitive material. Sensitive? As in what exactly? Nobody got answers, but the speculation was brutal. Was it money issues? Embarrassing photos? Something darker? Kanye never clarified, and that silence only fueled the rumors. And when it comes to rumors, nothing hit harder or faster than the shockwave that hit social media in early 2021. A viral TikTok started by influencer Ava Louise, the same girl who made headlines for licking a toilet seat during the pandemic, set the internet on fire with claims that Kanye was allegedly hooking up with none other than Jeffree Star. At first, it sounded too wild to believe. Jeffree Star, the beauty mogul known for controversy, drama, and having tea hotter than most people's careers? The idea that Kanye, who at the time was still very much tangled up with Kim Kardashian, could be involved with Jeffree sent shockwaves through every corner of the internet. Memes, conspiracy theories, even jokes about Wyoming and secret meetups. Suddenly, it wasn't just a story, it was a movement. But like so many viral rumors, the story eventually cooled off, at least on the surface, because behind the scenes, the cracks were already forming. And what started as a joke may have been closer to the truth than anyone wanted to admit. And just when everyone thought the whispers had died down, just when Kanye seemed to be more focused on his new marriage, his new music, his next era, boom, Jeffree Star lit the match that set the whole internet ablaze again. It started with one tweet. Just a few words, carefully chosen, strategically vague, but dripping with the kind of messy energy Jeffree is famous for. Funny how the truth always comes out, even years later. He didn't tag anyone. He didn't name names. But he didn't have to. Within minutes, the comment sections were flooded with guesses, and they weren't even guesses. People knew. Everyone immediately locked eyes on Kanye West. Because when Jeffree Star gets cryptic, it's never random. It's calculated. It's surgical. And if you've been paying attention, the clues were always hiding in plain sight. Some fans even dug up a line from one of Jeffree's old, forgotten songs. A line that, at the time, people brushed off as just another shock lyric. But now it sounded a lot more suspicious. Jeffree once rapped, "Nibbled off Kanye, now I'm one of the boys." At the time, It seemed like an obvious play for attention. Maybe a diss, maybe a joke. But looking back, it feels less like trolling and a lot more like a confession. And the timing? Chilling. Because back then, Kanye was already at the peak of his influence. Untouchable, unpredictable, and apparently hiding a lot more than the public ever imagined. So, with one cryptic tweet, Jeffrey cracked open a rumor that was never truly dead. And trust me, this time, the tea is even hotter. And if you thought Jeffrey's tweet was just a random thirst trap for attention, think again. Because the evidence? It's been hiding in plain sight for years. Let's rewind to Jeffrey's explosive appearance on Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive. Now, say what you want about Jeffree Star, but one thing he's mastered is the art of dropping bombs in the most casual way possible. And during that interview, he didn't just hint. He basically confirmed that powerful men in hip-hop were sliding into his DMs. With that signature smirk, Jeffrey dropped the line that made the entire room go silent. You'd be surprised how many famous rappers I've hooked up with. And no, I'm not talking about underground SoundCloud boys. I'm talking about the ones you listen to every day. Logan and the crew, they laughed it off at first. But Jeffrey leaned in, stared them down, and clarified. It's not a joke. I could ruin marriages. I could end careers. And here's the part that made everyone's jaw drop. Jeffrey claimed he had receipts. Not just texts. Photographic receipts. Photos, screenshots, conversations that could allegedly out some of the biggest names in the game. He said it so confidently, so matter-of-factly, that even Logan looked rattled. It wasn't a bluff. It wasn't a maybe. It was a promise. And knowing Jeffrey's reputation, if he says he's sitting on evidence, you better believe he's got a folder stashed away, ready to be unleashed the second he feels like it's time to flip the table. So now, with this new cryptic tweet reigniting old suspicions and the knowledge that Jeffrey has receipts tucked away like nuclear codes, the question isn't if he could expose Kanye. The question is, why hasn't he done it yet? And what exactly is he waiting for? Because if even half of what Jeffrey has hinted at is true, this story is about to get a whole lot uglier. And just when you thought the tea couldn't get any hotter, we have to talk about the alleged DL tape. Because behind all the cryptic tweets, the knowing glances, and the barely concealed shade, there's a much darker, more explosive rumor that's been bubbling under the surface for years. Whispers in certain circles have long suggested that Kanye wasn't just sliding into DMs. Allegedly, he was sending explicit content. Yes, that kind of content. Photos, videos, messages so explicit that if they ever saw the light of day, the entire internet, and probably the entire industry, would catch fire overnight. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Because Kanye, he already has a history of crossing lines when it comes to private, inappropriate behavior. Let's not forget, there have been court-documented incidents where Kanye's actions around women and staff were flagged as deeply problematic. Multiple former employees have come forward in lawsuits, alleging that Kanye exposed them to adult material without their consent. He's even been accused of showing graphic content during professional meetings, sometimes even bragging about it like it was no big deal. And if Kanye was allegedly that reckless in a boardroom, with lawyers and executives watching, what would stop him from being reckless in private messages? Now add Jeffree Star into the mix. Someone who's already teased that he's sitting on receipts powerful enough to end marriages and ruin careers. Someone who is calculated, petty, and absolutely fearless when it comes to airing out dirty laundry when the moment is right. It begs the question, does Jeffrey have something bigger? Is there a file sitting on a hard drive somewhere? Photos, videos, screenshots that could absolutely shatter Kanye's public persona? Because if the rumors about the DL tape are even remotely true, it would explain why Jeffrey has been so bold over the years. It would explain why, despite all the backlash and the near-constant attacks, he's never backed down from poking the bear. Maybe Jeffrey isn't bluffing. Maybe he's been holding a nuclear weapon this whole time. And maybe, just maybe, he's waiting for the exact right moment to push the button. Because one thing's for sure. In this game of silent warfare and subtle threats, the person with the most devastating evidence holds all the power. And just when you thought we'd reached peak chaos, the rumors take an even sharper, jaw-dropping turn. Because according to multiple insider whispers, people who allegedly ran in the same exclusive circles as Kanye and Kim, there's a claim that Kanye wasn't just reckless in private DMs. Behind closed doors, he was allegedly making shocking requests. Specifically, a non-traditional three-way. Yes, you heard that right. Not just your typical celebrity scandal material, but something way messier, way more complicated, and frankly, way more telling. The whispers say Kanye allegedly suggested a three-way arrangement that would have involved himself, Kim, and another man. Not another woman. Not a traditional Hollywood, let's spice up the marriage fantasy, but a very different dynamic. One that reportedly left Kim absolutely blindsided. Insiders claim that Kim, who had spent years carefully curating their public image, the power couple, the glamorous family, the unbreakable empire, was horrified at what this would mean for their brand, their businesses, and, more personally, their marriage. And when you line up the timeline, it's suspiciously neat. Because it's not long after these alleged conversations happened that Kim made the sudden, aggressive move toward divorce. One minute, they were posting family photos on Instagram. The next, Kim was meeting with high-powered attorneys, rebranding herself as an independent mogul, and plotting her swift and permanent exit. Some sources even claim that it wasn't just the embarrassment that fueled her decision. It was fear. Fear that if the wrong details leaked, it wouldn't just be a messy breakup. It would be a full-blown scandal that could scorch both of their empires to the ground. And here's the chilling part. If Kanye was allegedly comfortable enough to propose something so bold, so career-risking, what else was happening behind the scenes that the public still doesn't know? Because if even half of these insider claims are true, Kim wasn't just running from a troubled marriage. She was escaping a ticking time bomb. But hold on, because it gets even creepier when you look back at the footage we already have. Yes, footage that aired years ago on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. There's one scene in particular that fans have been obsessively dissecting in light of these new rumors. A scene that at the time seemed odd, maybe even played for laughs. But now it feels like a massive, blinking red warning sign we all missed. In one specific episode, Kim can be seen walking into a room where Kanye was supposedly staying alone. But the moment she steps in, her body language completely changes. She freezes, just for a second, like she wasn't expecting to see what she saw. Kanye, who normally would have made some cheeky comment or drawn her in for a hug, immediately becomes weirdly defensive. The camera cuts quickly, but not before you catch Kim giving the kind of tight, polite smile that anyone who's ever been uncomfortable knows all too well. It's the kind of expression that screams, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, and now I have to pretend everything's fine. And of course, because this is the Kardashians, the show never fully explains what happened. The editors gloss over it with a quick scene transition, pretending everything's normal. But diehard fans weren't buying it then, and they're definitely not buying it now. Fan theories exploded online. Some believe Kim caught Kanye texting, or maybe even FaceTiming, with someone he shouldn't have been. Others have gone way further, speculating that Kanye may not have been alone at all. That maybe someone else was in that room. Someone unexpected. Someone Kanye didn't want the cameras, or Kim, to catch. And when you remember that the Kardashian-Jenner family has always been masters at controlling their narrative, it makes you wonder, what else got cut out of the show? What secrets were quietly buried under the glittering surface of their reality TV empire? Because if even a glimpse of the truth slipped through in front of millions of viewers, imagine what was happening when the cameras weren't rolling. Now, we've seen the internet run wild with all kinds of speculations. And let's be honest, some of them are pretty out there. But we'd be remiss if we didn't address the elephant in the room. Yes, we're talking about the rumors surrounding Bella Thorne and Kanye West. Word on the street is that the actress and singer may have been more involved than we first thought. And that, behind closed doors, she might have even shared a connection with Kanye. But let's be crystal clear about something. This is not a space for us to shame anyone's identity. Whether it's Bella, Kanye, or anyone else for that matter. That's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about deception. We're here to talk about secrets. The kind of secrets that have been buried for so long. They've started to warp everything we thought we knew. Because it's not just about who was in the room with Kanye or the nature of these whispered rumors. It's about how these secrets have been kept under wraps, hidden away from the public eye for so long. It's about the truth, the real truth, that we've all been kept in the dark about. The lies have been carefully constructed, and it's time we all started pulling back the layers. So, while the Bella Thorne rumors are intriguing and, let's face it, add fuel to the fire, this isn't about shaming anyone. It's about the people behind these closed doors and the strings they've been pulling in the shadows. It's about the false narratives they've pushed, both for themselves and for the public. If there's one thing that's certain, it's that the truth is out there. And it's more complicated than anyone could have predicted. Let's take a moment and dive deeper, beyond the rumors, beyond the drama, into the mind of Kanye West. Because if there's one thing we know about Kanye, it's that his obsession with control and his carefully crafted public image has shaped every decision he's made. From his music to his personal life, all the way to his business empire. But here's the catch. What happens when that image starts to crack? See, Kanye isn't just a musician or a fashion mogul. He's a brand. And to Kanye, that brand is everything. In fact, his entire identity has been wrapped up in controlling the narrative around him. From the controversial moments to the wild tweets, Kanye has built a wall around his image that's so meticulously crafted, it feels like it's made of concrete. But when that wall begins to crumble, even just a little, it sets off a chain reaction. And that's when Kanye tends to lash out. So, if these rumors about his behavior are true, if behind the scenes he's been hiding things we don't know about, it makes sense that he'd become defensive, paranoid, even angry. Because when your entire identity is tied to this perfect, untouchable image, the fear of losing control over that narrative is devastating. And Kanye has made it clear, time and time again, that he will stop at nothing to protect that image, whether it's through public outbursts, social media rants, or even shifting blame elsewhere. If the truth about his private life were to leak in a way that challenged his carefully constructed persona, the backlash would be inevitable. It's not just about the rumors themselves. It's about the threat those rumors pose. The threat of him losing control. The threat of his public image shattering into 1,000 pieces. And for someone like Kanye, who's built an empire on being a genius, an innovator, and a larger-than-life figure, the idea of not being seen as in control is a nightmare. So, if these wild stories are even close to being true, it's easy to see why Kanye would go on the attack. Why he might dig in his heels, create distractions, and double down on his public persona to keep people from asking the hard questions. Because in Kanye's world, staying on top means keeping the upper hand, no matter what it takes. Now, let's hit pause for a second and play devil's advocate here. What if Jeffree Star is trolling us all? I mean, this guy lives for the drama, the controversy, the attention. We've seen it before. Jeffrey loves to stir the pot, push buttons, and let the internet go wild over something that's maybe not as explosive as it seems. What if this entire Kanye debacle is just another one of Jeffrey's elaborate pranks, a way to keep his name trending, keep people talking, and get the clicks? Could he be exaggerating? Could this whole saga be a case of him leaning into a rumor that's too good to pass up? Now, I'm not saying it's definitely fake, because the evidence is there, and we can't ignore the possibility of it being true. But let's entertain the idea that Jeffrey's playing us. Even if he is, though, the fact that Kanye's own messy history keeps these rumors alive says something. The cloud of controversy that hangs over Kanye, his strange behavior, his cryptic lyrics, his public outbursts, those things don't go away. And when there's smoke, there's often fire. So even if Jeffrey is stretching the truth, Kanye's track record leaves enough room for these wild stories to stick. And that, folks, brings us to the big question. Is Kanye hiding from the truth? Or is he just running from the inevitable receipts? The deeper this rabbit hole goes, the more unanswered questions there are. Is Jeffree Star really holding the keys to a scandal that could rock Kanye's world? Or is this just a masterful game of smoke and mirrors? Is Kanye's silence a defense strategy, Or is it a sign that he knows what's coming and he's terrified? All we can do right now is wait and see if more clues fall into place. But one thing's for sure, the world won't stop watching. As this story unfolds, just remember, nothing is ever what it seems in Hollywood, and with Kanye, Jeffrey, and Kim involved, we're in for a wild ride. So buckle up because this saga is far from over.